Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Stress Less, Accomplish More call. My name is Stephanie Matos. I'm a mindset coach on the Brightly Thrive team, and this call is all about helping you understand mindset better, stress a little better, the feelings in your body a little better, so that we can become masters of our own nervous system rather than it running the show so much. Colby and I have talked quite a bit about how intense the feelings of the body can be. We talked about when he was in law school and things like that. And it's kind of incredible what the body can do as a result of the thoughts in our mind. And so really that's what this call is all about, is to understand the mechanisms of these things better. For me, I really believe knowledge is power. And when you know better, you do better, right? Maya Angelou had that great quote, when you know better, you do better. And so that's really what this call is all about, is just to kind of unravel some of the mindset neurology components to stress. We can talk about stress, we can talk about other things, but stress is one thing that I think affects, dare I say, everyone. Most people. It's probably more accurate to say most people. However, every single person that I know, and so that can be definitely something we talk about. And as we always do, we'll start with wins. And so let's see. So Tracy is celebrating my girl graduating high school in 3 weeks. Lots of activities going on. Man, that's a great example of how something can be really exciting, but also a little stressful, and really happy, but also maybe a little sad, but all of this kind of stuff. That's really exciting.
Yeah, like the thoughts in the middle of the night, like, oh my gosh, did I do this? Did I do that? And then you get the sweats and the panics, and then you wake up and you're like, it's okay. I
You're
have
like, oh, okay. I woke up at 3 a.m. for nothing. Okay, great.
exactly.
We've all been there. I totally get it. And yes, that's exactly what I meant. Colby submitted my bar exam application last Friday. So it is a breath of fresh air to not be worried about it. I bet. I imagine. So congratulations, Colby. That's a huge, huge, huge accomplishment. Very, very good job. And a
Thank you.
great
Yeah.
thing to celebrate. Go ahead.
Yeah. I feel like I reread the entire thing over probably 30 times by the time I submitted it just to make sure everything was good. So it felt like a 10,000 pound weight just off. So yeah.
You're like, dude, send. Oh. Yeah, you know what's hilarious is that Colby's reading his bar application 30 times. I read a simple email like 30
Yes.
times. So, like before, I just sent an email proposal out yesterday. I think I probably read it at least 30 times. So hey,
Now, do you
uh,
reread it after you've sent it too?
I
Because
have
that's what I
done
do.
that.
I stress over the after the fact and like reread it a million times to make sure.
So
That's
have
why
I
I like
done it?
Slack.
Yes. What? Go ahead.
Yes.
Oh,
That's why I
for
like
editing.
Slack is I'll reread it and be like, well, it actually could be phrased a little bit better, and then I'll go through and adjust it.
Yeah. And in Slack it says edited. You're like, man, I wish it didn't say that. But yes, I have read emails after the fact. Every single time I have done that, I've seen a typo, even after I've read it like 30 times. So I try not to do it. I try not to do it. In Slack, I always do though. And I always end up changing at least a word or two. You know what's hilarious, you guys, is that this kind of brings me to one of the topics that I was planning on talking about. Now, first of all, I would love to know, is there anybody here who has any questions, want to cover anything, want to talk about anything? I know Tracy was saying she really enjoyed the breath work. Like that's something that we could do here as well. I also do guided imagery, guided meditations for reducing stress levels, but also creating visualizations for anything that you want to accomplish or achieve. There's all kinds of stuff that we can do in this call, but I wanted to ask you first if there's anything that you'd like to cover or talk about.
I'm good.
Colby oftentimes has cool things to add to the conversation. This is kind of a topic of interest for him. So Colby, feel free to jump in at any time, both of you guys. So one of the things that I had kind of just in my mind of something that we could talk about today, and you kind of mentioned it, Tracy, when you were talking about when you wake up, and she had mentioned that her daughter's graduating, there's like parties, and did I invite this, did I do that, did I take care of this, oh no, that kind of stuff. For whatever reason, we have a tendency to really, these things hit us in the middle of the night quite frequently, unfortunately so. They hit us at very inopportune times when we're supposed to be sleeping. However, this is an example of something called catastrophizing. And oftentimes our mind has a tendency to catastrophize things. And when we are lacking in sleep, or when we are kind of half in and out of consciousness, when we're half in and out of consciousness, we actually have access to the subconscious mind. And the subconscious mind is actually running 95% of what we do on a daily basis. It's part of the autonomic nervous system. So the autonomic nervous system is the thing that makes your heart beat as you breathe, things that you don't have to think about. But part of that is the subconscious programming, which is kind of like, I have a lock, what's it called? A code on my phone. And I can pretty much type it in without even thinking. But if you were to ask me what the code was, I'd be like, crap, what is it again? I'd have to look at it and then tell you, even though I can do it basically with my eyes closed, right? That's because it's so ingrained in my subconscious mind that I'm not even consciously aware of the numbers. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
This can happen when you're driving to work. I don't know if this has ever happened to you, but I used to work at a hospital, and what would happen, and I didn't love what I was doing at that time, and I didn't love where I was at in my life that time. And so what I would do was I would just either daydream sometimes about things that were really negative, like, oh, I don't, or whatever, or like, wouldn't that be great if I did this or that. And what would happen is that I would be in the parking garage parked and kind of think, I don't even really remember that drive. Like, I don't really even remember, and this can happen to you. Go to the grocery store or just places that you drive quite frequently. And that's because you're basically on autopilot. You've done it so many times that you don't really need to think about it. Now, the opposite is true if you are going to a new part of town that you've never been to and you're really relying on the GPS. It's kind of like, for me, I'm like, I need to turn off this music. I need to, pay attention a little more because I don't know where I'm going. So that would be an example of you using conscious mind, and not the subconscious programming. And so much of what we do on a daily basis is subconscious. And that can include being stressed about things, that can include worry, that can include all kinds of different things. And some of the things that are subconscious could also fall into the bucket of habits. So if I chew my nails when I'm stressed out, I might notice like 10 fingers in that all my nails are gone and
Mhm.
didn't even realize I was doing it, right? And so that could also fall into that realm of this habitual way of thinking, feeling, and acting. So when we're thinking about stress, for example, which is the topic of this call, sometimes stress can be ingrained in the subconscious based on things that we experienced in the past, or based on things that maybe are scary, or based on things that we don't want to mess up, or based on things that, whatever, all different kinds of stuff. And so when we think about, so that the reason why I went off on that little tangent, it does pertain, but the reason why I wanted to talk about that is because when you are in twilight, so if you're waking up or just falling asleep or whatever, you actually have almost direct access to that subconscious programming. And so if you're thinking things like, did I do this? Did I do that? Oh, like all of this kind of stuff. It's not coming from your conscious mind, right? Because your conscious mind is asleep, but the subconscious kind of stays awake, if you will. And especially if you are running more stressed, right? Or especially if you have more things on your plate than normal, or if you didn't maybe eat the healthiest and maybe you're sensitive to too much sugar or too much gluten or too much whatever, or if you didn't sleep enough the night before or whatever. So there's a lot. So stress in the body isn't only with like, I'm so worried and I have so much stuff to do. Stress in the body can come with, I didn't drink enough water, or I drank too much wine, or I was hanging out with people who were a bit negative and I have a little bit of a negative hangover from hanging out with these not so nice people or whatever it is. So stress can show up in the body in many different ways. And what I have seen happen time and time again, and I'm sure there's probably science behind this, is that when you are in a more stressed state or a little bit of worried or overwhelmed or whatever you want to call it, um, what happens is that all of the mindset chatter that's very negative has a tendency to pop up. When you are well rested, when everybody's being nice to you, when you've eaten salads and da 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 da, and when you feel good about yourself and you have a lot of energy, like it's almost like it's a different world or reality that we're living in. But really, you're the same person. Your reality is the same reality. It feels very different depending on where this is pointed, right? And so what I would say, let me see this. I start pretend arguments in my head. Yes,
All the
okay.
time, thinking of like, okay, I'm gonna have to deal with this person. Okay, he's gonna say this to me, and this is what I'm gonna say. And then all of a sudden, I'm in an argument in my head, and there's no argument. It's just all in my head. I'm making it up myself.
I know, isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
I think the only mammal or animal on the planet that can do that, that
Yeah.
can create things in our mind, that can, like fortune tell is another thing that we kind of do, is like, I know this is going to happen, blah, blah, blah. And then it's like, oh, or I knew they were going to be mad at me, blah, blah, blah. And then they're like, oh, hey, I'm so glad to see you. And you're like, whoa, they weren't mad at me at all. So we're one of the only creatures on the planet that has the capacity, but because our brain is so vast and so powerful and so creative in its thinking, that we can literally be creating all kinds of things that either never happen or stop us from pursuing great hopes, wishes, and dreams, or whatever, right? So actually, Colby brought up his bar application, right? There are some people, and I'm sure, like he said, I felt like a 10,000 pound weight or whatever it was got lifted off my shoulders, right? That makes perfect sense to me. There are some people who would never do what he's doing because they believe that feeling of that 10,000 pound weight is something they either can't stand, they don't have the resiliency for it, or it means that they're not good enough, not smart enough, or it means, so I call it stressing about stress. So it's like, this feeling that I feel must be telling me that I need to quit, or must be telling me that I'm not good at this, or must be telling me this or that, this that thing, right? But that's why not everybody does what Colby's done.
Oh,
It's just not
imposter syndrome is the worst. It took all 3 years for me to finally like, wait, no, I do deserve to be here. I can do it. I've been doing it. So it's that imposter syndrome is just the worst internal battle that I've had to deal with through the process. And yeah.
Oh my gosh, you and so many other people. And this is the interesting thing, is that, what did he say? I had to start telling myself I can do this. I had to start telling myself I am worthy to be here, and that I can be here, and that I can do this. Clearly, you were right, by the way. But imagine if he wouldn't have started to tell himself that. Now, what's interesting about that is that what that means is that in certain situations, and even this is kind of what Tracy was saying too, it's like there's two versions of us all the time.
Yes.
One is more pessimistic, one is more optimistic. One believes in ourselves, one doesn't. One thinks everybody hates us, one knows that can't possibly be true. One thinks that we're going to crumble to, a million pieces. One knows that we're very strong and capable of whatever we put our minds to, right? And what I was kind of saying before about stress in the body, and it, being perpetuated in many different ways, not just like with worry about work or worry about, your kids or whatever it is. When we get a little weakened, right? And again, it could be lack of sleep, lack of movement, lack of sunshine, or even too many toxins. Like, let's say if you did a bunch of cleaning and you were around a bunch of bleach or whatever, like it's incredible how intricate the body is, right? All of those things can lead you to start to think really negative thoughts, really scary thoughts, what if thoughts, the arguments inside of your mind or whatever. Now, some of this is actually for our high and best good, and for great results, because if you have a let's say a conversation coming up that is coming up, right? I think it's probably pretty good to be prepared, for any outcome, right? But we never want to just be solely focused on the negative outcome. It's like, okay, there could be two separate outcomes, the one that I want and the one that I don't want. I can feel comfortable and calm with both of these. There's been many times in my life that I've received the outcome that I don't want, and I'm still standing, right? There's been many times that I've thought that I was going to receive the outcome that I didn't want, and I got the one that I did want. So who am I to judge? Who am I to tell? Right. But what's so interesting is that we have the ability to literally speak to myself. What does that mean? How many of me are there? Like, as far as I know, there's only one, right? As far as I know, there's only one Colby and there's only one Tracy, yet we're having multiple conversations, right? Now, the reason why this is so important just to wrap our heads around is because whatever's running on the subconscious, and what I mean by that is sometimes people have a tendency to be more negative in their thought processes, and we talked a little bit about this in previous calls where we have optimists versus pessimists. And if you there are some people who were born optimistic. I have met them. I have seen it, right? There are also people who were born or raised to be more pessimistic. And so what happens is that what gets ingrained in the subconscious programming is, what if it all goes wrong? What if I mess it all up? What if nobody likes me? What if it all, whatever. And so what we want to be consciously aware of is, what are the words that I'm hearing, or phrases more importantly, that I'm hearing most consistently in my mind all the time. And for most people, I'll just be honest with you, it's very negative. Our internal dialogue has a tendency to be skewed negatively. And even to the point where you probably wouldn't even say some of the things out loud or to your best friend, let's say, that gets said to you in your own mind, right? And if there's one relationship that I think it's the most important relationships that we will have in our whole entire lives is the one that we have with ourselves, right? So if I wouldn't say it to a friend or family member or my daughter or whatever, if I wouldn't say that to any of these people, then why am I saying it to myself, and why do I find it okay? Well, part of the reason why is because it's been practiced for so long. It's been practiced for so long, it becomes like a record, spinning on a record player, just going on and on and on and on. And so, and we kind of started this conversation. This happens quite frequently on these calls where I'm like, I have this topic, and then we don't even talk about the topic. But catastrophizing, and you know what, I want to just read this, is kind of considered a magnification or making bigger certain things, and then minimizing or putting less weight on other things. But generally, the things that get magnified are how bad everything can go, and the things that get minimized are how great everything can go, right? And what we want to do is try our hardest to flip flop that in the places that make sense, in the places that it's safe to do so, right? So I live in Florida. A lot of alligators in Florida. Okay. Every body of water in Florida that's a freshwater, and even the rivers, some of them are brackish, they have alligators in them. So I'm not going to utilize this on the banks of the lake behind my house. Okay. So I'm not going to go, I'm going to maximize in my mind that I could just be safe to never get bitten by a water moccasin or a tarantula or a alligator. Like, no, right? So in places where it doesn't make sense, this makes sense, this way of thinking that magnifies the dangers of things. However, what has happened over time is that this type of thinking takes place in the office, at home, in the car, when you're in a store, when you're waiting in line at the grocery store, when you are doing your bar application. Like, all of these things start to magnify as, what if it all goes wrong? When these are all places where it's very safe to practice, very much the way that Colby was saying. I told myself I could do this. I told myself it was okay for me to believe in myself. I told myself that it's safe for me to be here around all these smart people. I am one of them too, right? And so this is something that it takes conscious thought to do it, because what we're talking about is subconscious, right? So subconscious runs on autopilot. You don't have to think about it, just like I don't even know my code. Like, I couldn't tell you my code, but I could type it, right? Because it gets memorized in the body. So I know what to do at a light, at a stoplight, or at a green light, but not because I'm like thinking about it. It's like the light turns green, my foot's already pressing, because that's something that I've done for decades, right? Same with stopping and all of that kind of stuff. And so because it's so ingrained, this magnifying of things that could possibly go wrong, or ways that I might mess it up, or imposter syndrome, or whatever it is, we have to set powerful intentions every single day for what we will and won't do, what we will and won't put up with from our own mind. I call it our negative inner bully. It's like a little puppet that's like, blah, 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 blah. Right now, what that takes is an awareness around where these things have a tendency to pop up. Right. So, for some people, do you have a sales shirt on? I could have sworn I saw a sales and services. Okay, so I work with people who do sales as well in a different company. And there are some people who are so frightened to do that, right? So in that particular instance, what they could do is write, okay, sales is okay. Sales is sacred. I'm allowed to do this. I'm serving. This isn't just selling. This is serving people at a high level, right? That's like a niche little thing where they know, okay, I feel a lot of stress in this particular area, right? For Colby, I'm pretty sure he knew, okay, as soon as I start this application, I know I'm going to start to get a bit stressed, but I know that I need to tell myself this is okay and it's part of the process. I've done this before. I felt this before. I can do this again, right? I've felt this feeling of I don't know if I can handle it, and I did handle it, so therefore I'm going to do it again, right? So it's kind of like pre-preparing yourself before whatever it is that you're about to do that typically causes that negative inner bully to start to chime in, or even the stress levels, right? So for some people, that's even just turning on their computer, literally, right? Like for some people, it's just like, here we go again, or, the emails, like, it's like, oh man, here I go. I'm about to open the emails. And it's like, we act like it's an alligator, like what I was just talking about, right? But it's not. An email, no matter how scathing it is never going to bite your leg off like an alligator might, right? And so what's important is to set yourself up for success before you do these things. Now, Tracy was just talking about how one of the other coaches is doing breath work, right? So touching base with your breath is so powerful, and it's something that all of us can do anytime, any place, anywhere, anytime. And for some people it's breath work, for some people it's going outside and getting some fresh air, for some people it's moving their body even if they don't go outside. It's like standing up out of your chair, maybe walking to a coworker's desk and back, just to kind of shake things off. For some people it's smelling essential oils, having like a scent that reminds you, oh yeah, oh yeah. Now, you'll notice that all of the things that I just mentioned are physical, right? So even like listening to music is more of like a physical thing where you're actually listening, right? So all of these things can alter states. And one of the reasons why is because when we get stuck in our mind, we detach from the body. Breathing gets really short and shallow. We magnify all of this kind of stuff and minimize all this other stuff. Like we were just saying, we catastrophize, right? And if we can do something that can get us back in our bodies and get back into the present moment where it's like, okay, that's happening next week and it might even not even happen, or, that's happening next month and it might actually be just fine, whatever happens, if you can get yourself to be back in the present moment through touch, taste, feel, hearing, using your five senses, that's something that can be really, really beneficial with particularly stress, but also with overriding the automatic patterns that all of us have. All of us have some automatic patterns. Some of these patterns serve us very well. Like, let's say I know to stop at a stoplight. I know to go when it's green. I know how to get into my phone very easily. All of those are ingrained patterns that there's no reason for me to change them. However, if there's any patterns where, like, for example, Colby just mentioned a pattern where he was like feeling imposter syndrome. And I think you recognize, Colby, and not everybody has the ability to recognize these things, but I think you had the capacity to recognize this is not going to go well for me if I keep listening to you. Like, my goal of achieving this is not going to happen if I keep thinking this. Therefore, it's important for me to change this. Right. That took a lot of conscious thought and effort and repetition. And it wasn't like, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think I might be right. It wasn't like an on off switch where all of a sudden he just went, I'm super confident now. Like, I no longer feel that way anymore. It's like, I'm no longer available for that feeling. And I'm willing to do whatever it takes to work its way out of my system and to work the right belief systems in. Right. Do you guys have any questions? We have a couple minutes left. Oh, I just saw that you guys were typing in here. It's a common internal dialogue for me to tell myself, I don't know how to do this, but I know that I will figure it out and do it. That is such a resilient type of mindset. That's a flexible mindset. So we have fixed mindsets and flexible mindsets. That is an example of flexible mindset. And flexible mindsets have more, as you can imagine, more success in every aspect of life because they do that. Like one of the biggest hallmarks is that right there. Oh, you're in Reddington Beach? No way, I didn't know that. Oh, very cool. So you're very familiar with the alligators and all of the stuff. My partner is from England, and when he first came here, he would just run up to the edge of the water, and I'm like, "Don't do that!" No, but that's because guess what? His subconscious programming did not have any of the fear mechanisms installed in it that mine do, where I'm like looking and looking for all the things, and he's just like, "Look, a pretty water," and I'm like, "No, it's only pretty right this second. You don't know what's in there." Okay, so Colby says, question after the discussion. I didn't even see your question. I'm sorry about that, Colby. Is the waking about to go to sleep state similar to deep meditative state that you go into when you meditate for a long time? Curious if this is similar to theta and delta brainwave states. Okay, so that is something that I'm not 100% sure of what you're actually. So there is a sleep wake brainwave frequency, and I'm pretty sure if we did a quick Google search, we could find it out and figure it out. I do believe that it's slightly different than theta. Like I think it's slightly different because what you're doing is actually training your brain in a conscious state to achieve certain brainwave patterns. And Tracy, I'm jumping into brainwaves with him only because we've talked about this previously. You're probably like, what?
No, I love listening to this. This is great.
Okay, cool. Love it. So what I would say is that if I had to guess, I have a feeling that they might be similar, but they're not going to be the same. But that is a complete guess. I don't have any science to back that up or any data to back that up, but maybe you can tell me in the next call. maybe you can look it up.
I'll totally do some research.
I love that. Yeah.
I don't know it either, so I'll look it up.
Yeah, love it. Love it, love it, love it. Yeah. And I have a feeling that there is a way to utilize wake and sleep, or the just waking up and the just falling asleep in order to install the right messages. And this is one of the reasons. Oh, we're running over time, you guys. I'm just going to finish this, but I want to be you guys to be aware of your own time and be respectful of your time. However, I have time to stay a little bit later. So this is why when people fall asleep, let's say watching cop shows or true crime or that kind of stuff, I highly recommend that you either listen to or watch something that you would like to install. Not that you can never enjoy these things or watch these things. However, that sleep and wake cycle can really create chaos if you're not aware of what you're actually doing. And just to I'll wrap it up with this. So I watched it's a documentary, I believe, on Mike Tyson. So Mike Tyson was a heavyweight champion of the world at 18 years old. Okay. Imagine the rock solid mindset that it takes in order for an 18-year-old to be operating at a world class level, right? It takes a lot of diligence, a lot of work, a lot of belief systems. Like you can't have any negative mindset about this when you're about to get knocked out by a 300-pound gorilla across from me, and what his coach used to do. Now, I don't necessarily know that this was 100% beneficial for him in the long run. It created a very powerful champion at the time. Maybe did a little damage later on, although he's doing just fine now, was he would wake him up in a dead sleep and go, "You're the king of the world. You can do anything you want. You're the champion." But he would wake him up at like 3 a.m. and do this like in the middle of his sleep. And I don't even know if his coach knew what he was doing. He created a monster. He really did. But that just goes to show you what's possible when you're actually feeding the mind with what you want instead of what you don't want. Anyways, you guys, as you can see, I can talk about this for hours and hours and hours. I will not do that to you though. I will let you go now. All right. So I will be back again on Monday. I really hope to see you guys again. I enjoy getting to spend time with you guys. And Tracy, it was really nice to get to know you today. And Colby, it was nice to see you. And hopefully I'll get to see you guys again very soon. All right. Bye, everybody. Bye.